At about midday, President Muhammadu Buhari arrives the council chamber after a two-day official trip to Nasarawa State to append his signature on the reworked Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which is the first in 12 years after the 2010 Electoral Act. The President of the Senate, Mr. Ahmed Lawan, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, Chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, the Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, Mr. Yabagi Sani, as well as other members of Cabinet were in attendance.
Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission.
The President acknowledges an improved version of the bill, which he has held for the past 25 days since it was transmitted on January 31, 2022. However, he has some areas of concern.
No political appointee at any level shall be voting delegate or be voted for at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election. This provision has introduced qualification and disqualification criteria that alter various the Constitution by way of imposing blanket restriction and disqualification to serving political office holders, of which they are constitutionally accorded protection.
That provision is a major objection raised by the President, which he believes infringes on the rights of political office holders. He wants the National Assembly to amend the section.
I hereby assent to the bill and request the National Assembly to consider immediate amendments that will bring the bill in tune with constitutionality by way of deleting section 84 subsection 12 accordingly.
Appearing visibly elated, the President, flanked by the leadership of the National Assembly, finally appends his signature to the reworked 2021 Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Moments after the brief ceremony, the President of the Senate, as well as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, apparently went into a private meeting with the President in his office. Now that the reworked 2021 Electoral Act Amendment Bill has been signed, expectations have obviously soared, and a more reliable election conduct in the country is imminent. From the Presidential Villa, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. You're watching 2022 in retrospect, a highlight of some of the events and activities that shaped the year 2022, which will, in a few hours, will turn to 2023. I do have a lineup of guests here with me in the studios to weigh in on what you've just seen and more, as it has to do with the Electoral Act, part of that judiciary as well. On my immediate right, Mr. Jibrin, immediate left, I beg your pardon, is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's also a member, former member, body of benchers. Thank you for coming on this morning, sir.
Thank you.
This evening. Sitting right beside him, a man you know as well, Mr. Festus Okoye, National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee of INEC. Thank you for coming on as well, Mr. Okoye.
Thank you so much.
And then NAOB Convener of Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. Thank you for coming on, madam.
Thank you for having me.
And Samson Itodo, Executive Director, Yaga Africa. Samson, good to see you.
Always a delight. Thank you.
Well, 2022, just a few more hours, it will be 23, and then there will be a lot more focus on what will happen with the elections. But let me start off with that report, which we just played about the Electoral Act, February, a date in history, a month in history in the life of this country. So I'll just get your views one after the other, but starting with you, Mr. Kutakwa. This signing of the Electoral Act into law, yes, it does change a lot of things, but for you, looking at the implication of that act, what do you think?
Well, thank you. For me,
I have always held the view that our problem is not with the law. Our problem basically is with us. It's our attitude, as politicians, as lawyers, as judges, as INEC, whatever name you call us. You will not bring any angel from heaven to conduct our election, or are we going to import angel from heaven as politicians in Nigeria? There's nothing in the old Electoral Act, for instance, that says that a politician should engage thugs for purposes of election. Indeed, all the laws that we have had, including the one that deals with parties primaries, have emphasized democratic principles of voting. But when you look at the kind of political parties we have in Nigeria, I ask myself, do we really have political parties in the strict sense of the word that engages in political education, political sensitization, that believe ideally in the democratic principles of one man, one vote, that respects sovereignty of the people? So the practical reality on the ground, notwithstanding that what we see and the law that we have signed, is that our attitude and character and our orientation towards democratic principle in Nigeria seems to be on a very serious deficiency. And until we look at that critically, the new Electoral Act has introduced a lot of innovations, which, if we allow it to work, it will work. But if we don't allow it to work, no matter how beautiful the provisions of laws are, they are being implemented by human beings. And those human beings are Nigerians that appears to have a DNA within their blood that seems to suggest that violating the law with impunity has become the order of the day, because there are no consequences for these infractions of our law. But having said that, I commend the new Electoral Act that have introduced a lot of innovation. For instance, electronic transmission of results. There again, do we have the facilities for INEC to transmit electronically, given our very highly deficient power supply, our epileptic internet services, and so on and so forth? I'm sure my learned friend and the Honorable Commissioner sitting immediately on my left will be able to throw more light as to the capacity of INEC. I do not want to go to what other thing operating in my mind.
Yeah, but probably, hopefully soon, but he might as well just pick it up from there. Mr. Okoye, could you go ahead, please?
Well, I think that the signing of the Electoral Act into law is historic. And the Electoral Act 2022 is a very progressive piece of legislation. It has domiciled more concretely some of the provisions the Commission has been canvassing for in our electoral legal framework. And it has also changed the electoral matrix of this country. For instance, this is the first time that a law is making a provision that funds due to the Commission for the conduct of election should be released to the Commission at least 360 days before the conduct of any election. Secondly, we have had very serious challenges with the issue of voter accreditation and authentication. The new Electoral Act has also domiciled more concretely the use of the smart card reader or any other electronic device for the authentication and validation of voters. The third is that the new Electoral Act has also made it possible for only the Federal High Court to have exclusive and original jurisdiction over pre-election matters. Prior to this particular period, the various high courts and the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory exercise jurisdiction over pre-election matters. But now we only have the Federal High Court dealing with the issue of pre-election litigation. And so I think that there are new innovations and new issues in the electoral legal framework that will definitely change the way elections are conducted and also the way our political parties are organized. If you recall, the president signed the new Electoral Act into law on the on the 25th day of February 2022. And then the next day, being the 26th day of February 2022, the Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities for the conduct of the 2023 general election. So I think that I agree with the learned senior advocate that law and law alone does not make a good election. It is a combination of a good electoral legal framework and also good organization and planning that will make for a successful election. But we believe that with this new law, it has given us a lot of muscle, given us a power to do the right thing, and also giving the political parties the marching order that in terms of the party organization, in terms of the conduct of party primaries and also nomination of candidates, that they also have a responsibility to do things in a transparent manner that will befit political parties that want to assume power. So we as a commission, we are happy with the new electoral legal framework, and it will give us a lot of leeway and a lot of window to operationalize some of the things we have in store for the election.
I know it's part of what the CSOs have been advocating for a while. So, Mr. B, could you just tell us, from what you've seen, what kind of impact is this act having already?
I think for us, from the side of civil society, the signing of the Electoral Act, into law, signing of the bill into law, that was a date with history, because we advocated for it. It has been so many years. I think that was the 7th time that the bill went to the president. When it went for the 6th time, we were holding up ourselves, towards the end of the year of last year. We were holding ourselves, we were hoping that that was going to be a gift for the end of the year. But again, the president turned it down. They went and did adjustment. We followed up, and, we were given extra duties or extra work, to work hard. But we were excited when the parliament came back and they went into action immediately, and they were able to turn the bill to the president. And so that day was a date with history. I think it's because we know that there were flaws, because these days you are seeing more pronouncements for victory, in terms of elections from the courts instead of INEC. We want more victories coming from the side of INEC. INEC is the one that has the right to declare people winners or losers and all that if election is conducted under a free, fair, atmosphere, and is also credible. We want more announcements. And that's why we also advocated for the commission, for the Electoral Offences Tribunal, or the commission. The bill is before the House, and if we had a backup, right now, I think INEC has about 800 cases, which they are going to talk about. It has
increased from 600 to 800 now.
So when we are looking at all of that, you see this law as a win-win, because now, no longer power has gone to the hands of the people. And that's why when you see the aspect of, things that they need to tidy up is in the area of vote buying and vote selling and so on and so forth. But when you are looking at that as well, you now know that once voting has been concluded, then it is uploaded. You can see that technology has come to stay. And then accreditation, it will accredit, it will do all the things that it needs to do, and interference will be seen. There's no way you can interfere with the system and it will not be seen. And so I think it's exciting for us, civil society organizations, that now the votes of Nigerians will count. And now people need to be able to defend their vote. When you want to go and cast your vote, you know that you have a duty. But all of it will be dependent on citizens, the civil society. And that includes you and I, the media. The judiciary has a huge duty. And I think we need to really bring in the MBA in terms of how pronouncements are being done in the courts, for example. We have a duty to correct things in Nigeria. Well, if the law has been given, it needs to be implemented.
We'll get Mr. Kutekba to speak about that, hopefully, as we progress. But Mr. Todo, is there any such thing you can describe as a big takeaway for this Electoral Act this year?
First, if you look at the form for which the law came to be, it's victory for citizens and victory for democracy. Yes, fantastic piece of legislation, but it didn't come easy. It took the effort of different stakeholders, and in particular citizens. There were 2 or 3 defining moments in the entire process of making this law. The first one was after the committee had concluded its work. we were told that some provisions were deleted and there were insertions that were made in the bill. It took public outcry, to get issues like electoral technology protected in the law. And when that happens, for citizens who are losing faith in democracy and the electoral process, I think that should inspire the citizen out there that indeed you can speak and the state and government will listen and deliver a legislation that reflects your needs and your priorities. That's one. The second is, if you look at how, yes, the National Assembly prioritized this issue, but the big issue is when you look at the public hearings and the issues that citizens canvass, you could also see that, yes, the National Assembly was responsive in highlighting those issues. And so when you talk about takeaway, in terms of the entire process, the fact that citizens watched over this process, they engaged, the fact that the National Assembly adopted a collaborative approach because there was a technical committee comprised of the Minister of Justice, the Office of the Attorney General, INEC was the National Commissioner was part of that committee and also even led some aspects of that committee. You could also see legislators, and that joint approach adopted by both the Senate and the House helped fast track, and it helped build consensus around those issues. And so when you talk about takeaway, the form and the process for this is a key one, that this entire Electoral Act came as a result of intense public engagement, and that should inspire citizens. The second is the issues, in the Act. I'll deviate from electronic transmission, but let's look at one of those issues that was reportedly deleted from the report. And that is the power that INEC should have to review declarations made under duress or in contravention of the guidelines. Because previously, INEC didn't have that power. But now, INEC has the power. So what happened in the 2019 elections where politicians force, returning officers, coalition officers to declare them, winners under duress, gives INEC the power to review the results. The other part of the Electoral Act was the attempt by the National Assembly to fix local government elections. So if you look at Part 5 or 6 of the Electoral Act, based on that provision, it provides, I think Section 150 or so, that all local government elections across the country shall be guided by the part of the Electoral Act that deals with the procedure for the conduct and the management of the FCT election. And I think that's quite an innovative way of trying to sanitize our local government election. And if you see that the court, some states attempted, to circumvent and ignore the law, but they were forced by the court to suspend the conduct of local government elections. And the point about securing INEC's funding, that we've been screaming and citizens have been asking that you can, one way to rig election is to starve INEC of its funding. And the law now provides that 360 days, to elections, INEC should have all the funding for the elections. Again, the implementation of this, like previous speakers have said, is quite critical. But this is one piece of legislation that citizens should celebrate as victory for democracy.
Ms. Okoye, I know that Mr. Kutakwa did speak about capacity of INEC to carry out some of this election, the laws notwithstanding. But then there's also a lot that is expected of INEC from the people. In fact, a lot of people got to register this time because of introduction of BVAS, no thanks to the law. They're still so optimistic, hoping that this time there will be a lot of difference. So in addition to probably you responding to that question from Mr. Kutekwa, what should they expect from INEC? Probably, I know you're making plans about logistics. Used to be a challenge, hoping this time they will all start at the same time. Nobody will arrive late. People expect to pick up their PVCs so they can go ahead and participate this time. Unique candidates across board. What should they expect from INEC?
Well, the people of this country should expect that this commission will conduct a very good election. Conducting a very good election in terms of the fact that we started preparations for the conduct of the 2023 general election. Immediately we finished with the 2019 general election. we did what we call both internal and external review of the election and made a determination relating to certain things. First, we asked the question, what are those things we did so well that we don't need to change anything? Then we also asked the second question, what are those things we did well but we didn't do so well that we need to improve upon and upgrade? And then we asked the question, what are those things we did so badly that we have to completely throw away and begin afresh? That was the premise on which we base our processes and our procedures. As of today,
the number 3 rank highest.
Well, as of today, our processes and procedures are going as planned.
Okay.
When we released the timetable and schedule of activities on the 26th of February 2022, we listed 14 critical and fundamental items that we need to accomplish. Out of those 14, we've already accomplished 9 and accomplished the 9 on schedule. On the 30th of this month, political parties were supposed to have submitted the names, signature, and personal particulars of their polling agents in relation to national election. And then thereafter, on the 6th day of January, they are supposed to submit the names, signature, photographs, and personal particulars of their party agents for the state elections. That's the governorship and state assembly elections. Now, on the 12th day of January, we are supposed to release the official register of voters. All these things we are going to accomplish, and we are going to accomplish them on schedule. The beavers, which we said is going to be the game changer in relation to this election, is in place. And I want to confirm that we have sufficient number of beavers that will be used for the conduct of election in the 176,846 polling units across this country. And we're also going to have redundancies for the 8,809 registration areas or electoral wards. And we also have others that we are using for training because we want to train our ad hoc staff longer on the use of the beavers so that we won't have a challenge of people not knowing how to use the beavers and blaming it on technology and so on. So in terms of that, we are good to go. We are also harvesting the names and personal particulars of those who are going to serve as our ad hoc staff. And for the 2 elections, that's the national and the state election, we are going to engage over 1.4 million ad hoc staff. And we are going to also train them. We've also concluded arrangements with the National Union of Road Transport Workers and the National Association of Road Transport Owners, as well as the marine unions, in terms of our logistics and logistic issues. And we are confident that with the processes we have in place, other than the security challenges in different parts of the country, that we are going to deploy on time. So I believe that in terms of our processes and procedures, we're on top of the situation.
Does it answer your question, sir?
Well, all that my learned friend and the Honorable the National Commissioner has said are plans. Now, first let me appeal to him because INEC is not a natural person. I want to appeal that INEC live up to its name of being independent. Independent National Electoral Commission. Independent from political parties, independent from government, independent from everybody.
Are there signs that concern you at the moment for you to raise that?
Yes, there are. For instance, there are stages of electoral disputes. After the conduct of election, for instance, if INEC is too, INEC has been brought to know that, for instance, election in a particular state was not a product of democratic principle. INEC should thank, and after proper investigation, thank those who brought that to his knowledge and stop using taxpayers' money to fund litigation to defend such election. Because if INEC comes to court and say, yes, election in polling unit A, B, C, and D, according to what Mr. Todo has said, had been rigged, and they discover it has been rigged, INEC is aware it has been rigged, why should you pay Mr. Kutepa to go and defend the election petition? That's number one, INEC need to do. Number two, my learner friend was commending that you have had now a centralized litigation in Federal High Court. I didn't see that as a huru, because for me, it's just because we have not tested it. There are provisions of the Electoral Act that concentrate litigations, pre-election litigation, in the Federal High Court is a violation of Section 272 of the Constitution that gives unlimited jurisdiction to State High Court to settle civil disputes, and pre-election matter comes within the purview of civil disputes. You see, my problem with us is not about the fine lay-down layer of the activities that he has beautifully laid out. For him as a person that I've known, and maybe the chairman of INEC, who may or who have a nationalistic instinct in them to see that things are well done, very well, fine and good. But how nationalistic and patriotic will the over 1-point-something million ad hoc staff to be trained by INEC will be in carrying out the aim and objectives of INEC for free, fair, and credible election? That is an issue that he needs to address, because like I started in the beginning, these 1-point-something million people that have been recruited are Nigerians, drinking Nigerian water and breathing Nigerian air in Nigerian soil. How are we able to put in them the spirit of resisting the temptations of collecting money and change the result, even if you at your national level, where you are monitoring the result of the election, the computer, the beaver, does not monitor itself. There is a theory of law, garbage in, garbage out. How are we sure that somebody somewhere there will not be unpatriotic? So all these are all things that I think we should interrogate as Nigerians. I've been practicing and I've been doing election petition matters for a very long time. In the circumstances where you expect INEC to praise the petitioners, INEC becomes, with respect, they become more Catholic than the Pope. And so it worries some of us that democracy shouldn't end in court. Democracy, like my friend and Ernest said, we want sovereignty of the people to flow by INEC announcing result of election. Because as of today, INEC is not the last referee in election in Nigeria. The last referee appears to be the court. Okay, well, and once the court makes such pronouncement, and then if time permits, our judiciary also need to know that once there is chaos in this country as a result of bad decision, then there is no place for judiciary and lawyers to ply their trades in this country. So we all must agree we'll still get a lot more
on that one. I know I've heard a lot about perspectives on the beavers, the backup, in case something happens somewhere, but I guess we'll get a lot more from that. But let me bring in Millicent. Millicent, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Jim. I almost thought that you had forgotten I was here for a moment. And welcome to all our guests. My question is, perhaps what I sensed was an exception to the rule when Mr. Okoye was talking about some of the activities and the preparations ahead of next year's general election. And that is a topic we've been discussing before this one, the issue of security. And perhaps I should ask this to Madam Eneobi as a CSO and perhaps Mr. Itsodo, in terms of the attacks on INEC, the many attacks from 2019, over 50, to 2022, and then we just have barely 2 months to a general election. Do you think that it is safe and, you know, there is no security threat for us to have this election, which begins in February?
I do think that the issue of security threat is something that worries one, no doubt about it. We do believe that, we do know that the issue of security threats, you know, the attack on INEC offices is something that we have condemned seriously. And that is why we are calling on all Nigerians that this election is not just about INEC. It's about the citizens. We have to understand the fact that the workers in INEC are Nigerians. They are citizens trying to uphold that aspect of the system. And we are part of the system. We are the citizens. We need to change the narrative of using our young people. And when you go to certain quarters, or even when you talk to security people, they say it's the politicians that are the issues, that are the problems for them. because one party is trying to be stronger, or one candidate is trying to be stronger than the other, and they are using people's children to destroy the system. And that's why it's very, very important that we talk to our children, and we want the young Nigerians to know that many of these politicians that are sending them to destroy do not have their interests at heart. They don't use their children, they don't send their children to go and do all of these things, but sending other people's children. And these are the younger Nigerians that are so vulnerable, and that they are out of job. Many of them don't have jobs, and then you feel. And we are also discussing this, the whole thing. This election is holding in the midst of when you have more than 133 million Nigerians below the poverty line. And so you use them because you have some money, and sometimes the money does not belong to the politicians, because many of them looted the treasury. Many of the governors are not paying, they are not even paying, they have not paid salaries for 8 months, 9 months. They have not paid those who suffered for Nigeria, like those who are under pension right now. Some of them retired for 3, 4, 5 years. They have not collected their pension. And so they become very, very vulnerable. And these are security issues. So perhaps sometimes you find a struggle in a particular state. It's not because of any other thing, but because they are trying to survive. And so those who are responsible are still those who are manipulating the people to be able to do that. And so we are calling on all the stakeholders. We are calling on the citizens. We are calling on the politicians. We are calling on the judges. We're calling on MBA to pull its weight, and the body of bench, the benchers to do their job, and the Ministry of Justice. They are Nigerians. We are calling on all Nigerians to stand upright for Nigeria, that wherever you are. The fact that Nigerians are on their duty posts and they are losing their lives because of election is shame on Nigeria. And it's shame on every one of us, and we are all partakers, and is a failure of a generation. 2023 is a date with history. It's a date that if every one of us stand up and do our own bits at our own levels, and that's why we call on the security forces. The police is the chief, is the agent that is responsible. But the whole of the armed forces are involved when they are called upon. And we are asking, because as a woman too, bloodletting in Nigeria, we don't have value to life in Nigeria. When you are hearing, like in Kaura, in Kaura, local government in Kaduna, you hear that about 40 people were wiped up in the same day. As a woman, I think of the 40 pregnancies that women carried, how they nursed those babies up to the point that you have wasted their lives. When they talk of the insurgents, the soldiers are children of women. The young people that are going on the streets that have no jobs and that have gone to somewhere else, and the young people are caught in between all of these things, because whether is the insurgent or the conflict that meets the young people, you either join them or they kill you. If the forces meet you, they are also, we need to look at the security is a major issue, and we are asking that the security forces do their duty, that the police, because people were arrested in Ekiti, people are arrested in Osun. We have not seen any process in terms of
and perhaps Mr. Okoye can lend his voice on that matter.
Justice needs to be brought.
Indeed.
They complain about the Electoral Act, but we have the Penal Code, we have the criminal, the laws that control the Constitution of Nigeria that can bring us down to the law. And so we ask that every state and every citizen where you live protect the INEC institutions, protect the children of Nigeria, whether they are INEC, ad hoc staff, or wherever they are, so that you don't waste lives.
Let's talk to Mr. Okoye, and this is with regards to INEC's preparations. There have been about 8 attacks this year alone. Have there been anyone held accountable? I mean, this shows there is a process that is ongoing. And also, when people ask the question of independence of, your institution, from what we heard the senior advocate Kutekpa talk about.
Well, in terms of INEC's preparations and in terms of arrest and investigation and prosecution of electoral offenders, you have to realize that if you look at the Electoral Act only gives the Commission the power to prosecute. The Commission does not have the power of arrest. The Commission does not have the power to investigate. It is only when arrests are made, investigations are carried out, and the file is turned over to the Independent National Electoral Commission that we can prosecute. And that is why the chairman of the Commission has said it consistently that what we need at this point in time is an Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal that will take charge from the beginning of arrest, investigation, and prosecution of offenders. Because some of the electoral offenders may even be staff of the Commission, and we cannot be expected to begin to prosecute ourselves in a court of law. So to that particular extent, we believe that we should pursue an Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal. On the issue of independence of the Commission, the Independent National Electoral Commission is not just the chairman and the 12 national commissioners. We have over 16,000 staff across all the states of the Federation. We have our state offices made up of heads of department. We have our local government offices headed by electoral officers, assistant electoral officers, and so on. So I believe that the Commission has been protected by the law. We have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, which gives the Commission the exclusive right and power and authority to organize, undertake, and supervise elections in this country. And we also have the constitutional provision that protects the national commissioners and the chairman from any form of harassment, any form of and so on, and so on. And so I believe that independence is not just in the law or in the Constitution. There's also what we call both mental independence and otherwise. So you can be theoretically independent, but mentally you have sold your conscience and you don't want to be independent. I believe that we have the processes and procedures in place that protects the Commission. Now, what we have done, and what the chairman has completely emphasized, is that we are building a professional and ethical commission that where a national commissioner cannot even influence the outcome of any election in one polling unit. And that's the direction we are going. And so I believe that it is left for the Nigerian people to make a determination on whether this particular commission has been carrying out its activities independently and professionally and ethically. Okay. And by the way we are going, we believe that we can give Nigerians a very good election and that we can build an institution that all Nigerians will be proud of. Just a quick one before we go, Samson. I know you've spoken about the role of the citizens for this election. So many will ask, if the Electoral Act has been passed, all these provisions are there, there's BVAS, we will see real-time uploading of results, certain things will happen. Why do they need to still be on the alert on election day?
Well, vigilance is a price that you pay for liberty. This entire elections is managed by human beings. And these human beings, you know, are susceptible to compromise. Because at the end of the day, it boils down to the personal integrity of the individual who is managing the electoral process at your polling unit. But then you have to keep an eye, because a credible election is a joint task and a shared responsibility. So citizens need to keep an eye. Yes, INEC may be independent or is independent, but you have 1.4 million people out there. These are not regular staff of the Commission. They are recruited as ad hoc officials. So citizens should, one, show up early at their polling unit on election day, you know, and then when they conclude voting, they should stay in the polling unit and ensure that the polling officials comply with the guidelines for the conduct of that election. And you talk about, you know, BVAS. What citizens need to know is that they need to watch to observe that the BVAS is used to take the original and authentic result from that polling unit, because it's their duty and their responsibility, and they shouldn't just vote and go back home thinking that, oh, the process will not be manipulated. All right. That will be a very interesting area where there should be a lot of focus as well. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have to go. Mr. Jibrin Okutakwa,
a senior advocate of Nigeria. They are looking at me saying, what's happening? We just started. Time is already fast spent. Mr. Festus Okoye, NLB, Samson Itodo, thank you all for coming, and I wish you all a very, very happy New Year. It will be Mr. Kudeba's birthday tomorrow, actually. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. With him.
Right. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy
New Year to you all.
Thank you.
We're back in a moment, everyone. Stay tuned.